The time is now 5 o'clock. I call this meeting of the Granbury Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We're going to go ahead and open with a word of prayer, and then we'll have our pledges. I'll wait until Dr. Glenn can get back here. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. In your precious Son's name, we pray. Amen. Please stand for the pledges.
Please join me in the pledge to the American flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, thank you all for coming tonight. This is a first. I want to give a little background. Purpose of today's meeting is to hear from the community on topics of interest to them that are not necessarily on board agenda for discussion. Therefore, unlike regular board meetings, this is a special meeting. We, the board, can also have dialogue with the speaker and, when possible, resolve issues of concern. An example I have given in our last 3 regular board meetings is follows. A gentleman spoke at a board meeting recently, several months ago, about the broken AC on his daughter's bus. Since it was not an agenda item, we could not discuss the problem with him. All we could do was listen silently. In this venue, we could discuss the buses have been ordered, but the delivery is slow, and that we work to keep our buses running, but it's difficult given the miles that we put on them every single day. Also, we could direct him to whom to contact to directly help his daughter. The meeting is for dialogue. No action will be taken by the board on any subject at this meeting. Here's the format for tonight. The speaker will have 3 minutes to state their topic. The board will speak to answer questions, ask clarifying questions, or to comment. We have invited certain staff members to be here to give expert information as needed. The speaker may then reply to the board dialogue. We will then move on to the next speaker. A recording of this meeting can be found on the Granbury YouTube after the meeting is over. Several people would like to speak concerning the bond, so I have asked Mr. Holsey to come from Stantec Architects to be here tonight to first give a quick overview of the board proposal before we hear bond proposal before we hear from our speakers. Mr. Holsey.
You're here. So for those of you that were not in attendance or participating in the long-range facility planning committee meetings or paying attention to the board meetings at large, I guess, in which these were discussed, the bond proposal is $161.5 million. Touches all the elementary school campuses, addresses a new elementary school campus on the northeast side of town to support the growth that's heading out that way, which is outlined in the district's demographer reports. It also addresses expansion at Acton Middle School to support the growth as it goes through the middle school levels, and a small amount of work at the high school to do some rooftop unit work, some safety and security for sidewalks, a crosswalk in front of the high school, those are all items that were in the bond proposal.
Thank you very much. And he will be available in the meeting to answer other questions as they come up. All right. There have been some questions as to why we're here. I was asked by one of our trustees to make sure that I could handle 150 people, so that's why we moved it into this room, and that's why we're here. I wanted to also make sure that the board was at the same level as the person who's going to speak, so that it is a dialogue and doesn't look like we're up here talking to someone down low. We want this to be a way of engaging with the public. That is the purpose of this meeting. All right. The first person up this evening is Mr. Jim Jarrett.
President Townsend, Superintendent Glenn.
It's on.
It's on green. Okay. And trustees, thank you. Thank you for this meeting. I'm here tonight to ask about the approval of the Snow, Garrett, and Williams as the 23-24 school year auditor of record for Granbury ISD. This was covered in last week's or February 12th meeting. Okay. First, I want to say that Snow, Garrett, and Williams are a positively recognized with a very good reputation firm in the field of governmental accounting. That this is my comments are not about Snow, Garrett, and Williams.
Can't hear.
My comments are not about Snow, Garrett, and Williams. Better? Good. I want to make that clear. They're not about Snow, Garrett, and Williams. It's about process. Also want to acknowledge first that Mr. Whitefield is absolutely correct when he states that TEA rules do not require auditors to be changed out, ever. Changing out auditors every 5 years is only required of public companies. And my experience is in public companies, so I had that question. And it was, I believe, answered very correctly. Thank you, Mr. Whitefield. Mr. Whitefield is also correct when he says that there are two sides to this question of changing out auditors. I went down a couple of rabbit holes to see this, and there are thousands of these rabbit holes. But in researching it, the various sides of the argument find that there are some advisors are concerned that keeping an auditor too long causes them to lose objectivity. After all, auditors are supposed to be independent, closely scrutinize the client's business practices. Staying too long may cause them to overlook practices that have been determined to be out of step with current accounting practices or have simply been replaced with additional processes or techniques. In any case, there's a better and less costly way to reach a satisfactory evaluation. And speaking of price, by not going out to bid on a periodic basis, GISD is losing out on what the current pricing might be, and is also limiting a new and qualified, innovative, competitive firm from quoting a lower price simply to get into the market, or a more seasoned, qualified firm from quoting a lower price because they desire to enter into this market and choose to do so with a marquee name. Again, nothing against Snow, Garrett, and Williams, but in 2022, this same firm held the Hood Appraisal District contract when it came due for renewal. They had this contract for over 20 years. In 2022, the HCAD board actually bid out the audit work, and there were 3 bidders. The other 2 bidders were one third the price of the incumbent Snow, Garrett, Williams. One of them was awarded the contract at a significant cost reduction to the HCAD. TISD is possibly missing out on this opportunity by not bidding out this substantial contract. And I assume that this contract is over $100,000 since trustee approval was required, but the actual cost was not mentioned. I had a request. My request is that I encourage the trustees to consider implementing the practices of A, rotating auditors, and B, bidding out all contracts over $100,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jarrett. That's something worth definitely looking into. Mr. Whitefield, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that before we can definitely next year put it up for bid. Obviously, this year's taken care of.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a fine suggestion that we can look into. Mr. Whitefield, would you like to say something?
Oh, I can. Does it bother me? Talk. Yes, and what you're saying is correct, that the TA did discuss changing out auditors regularly about 10 years ago. They pulled that back because they were getting some feedback from firms and from ISDs, because there are not that many firms that want to do an ISD. The ones that are coming into the market are small, for lack of a better word, mom and pop auditors, and they don't have the resources to audit somebody like us. Like our operating budget is $93 million, so a small mom and pop couldn't take us on. We did in 2008 have a different auditor, Patillo Brown out of Waco. They sent 2 people to me. It took them 6 weeks on site to finish. Snow Garrett hits me for a week in June, hits me for a week in October, and then we get that. I can tell you that over the past few years, change pages here, sorry. Our costs for 2023 were $57,440, and our costs for 2022 were $54,680. So we're not anywhere close to $100,000. The only reason we bring it to the board is so they're signing off on the external auditors for the independent audit.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Whitefield.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is a perfect example of what I wanted this to be. Give you all a chance to ask your questions, and then us to be able to clarify information that you may not have. So thank you, Mr. Jarrett. Yeah, it was a perfect one to start with. Yeah, here you go. Okay, our next one is Mr. Jerry Doddard.
Well, I didn't actually come to ask a question at all. I just wanted to make some observations, and if you wish to react to them, you certainly are free to do so. I've spent a considerable amount of time over the last 2 or 3 months reflecting on why it has I've seen really no success in what I felt was a change in the culture of the school board. My perception is that the culture is worse than it was 3 years ago when I first undertook the effort to make some changes in it. But in the course of contemplating on this, I've gained some insight that I didn't have previously. And that is that change is coming. It's just not coming where I thought it was going to come from, and it's not going to come as how I thought it was going to come. In fact, the voucher program that is being proposed at the state level is going to be the instrument that is going to produce the change in the culture that I've been talking about, because it is going to bring back a pathway for parents to have more of a say-so in when, where, and how their children are educated. And to accompany that observation, I had some additional insights, and you may want to call them prophecy if you want to, but nevertheless, this is how I see what's going to happen that probably over the next decade. I do think that the voucher programs are going to be passed. I've watched what the governor is doing and the political capital he has invested in trying to make this happen, and I think you will see it happen in the next legislative session. When that happens, there are some things that are going to take place, and I think one of the most significant ones is that teachers, especially your best and brightest teachers, are going to become independent contractors. They're going to contract with a set of parents to educate their children apart from the ISD, because they're going to find that they can make more money, teach fewer students, and have less bureaucratic involvement in their life. I think the homeschool co-ops are going to grow by leaps and bounds, every church in this community is going to have a school, and if they don't have one, they're going to provide space for a co-op. Charter schools are going to expand. Corporate entities are going to begin to get into the educational business, such as AT&T and Amazon. And I also think there are going to be specialty schools developed on the order of the ING program in Florida, where students that are gifted in art, music, theater, athletics, and those types of things will be educated in those types of schools. So what are the implications then to GISD? Well, first of all, it's going to cost you enrollment. And I can see a situation where if the culture doesn't change, that by the end of the decade, you'll be at about 50% of what you are right now. One thing you will be able to do is provide rent space for some of these additional schools. I still think also that the unfortunate thing is that we'll be responsible for the debt that we incur at this particular time, and there will be staffing problems associated with what's coming down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Does anyone want to comment on what he has said? Do you have anything else you would like to say before you're done?
Nope.
Thank you, sir.
You got exactly what I expected.
Okay, the next person up, Christy Schreiber, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly.
Yes, you are. Thank you. Excuse me. Allergies, so
No worries.
coughing a lot, scruffing a lot. So we're all visual learners, right? So I'm going to start with a word picture for you. Our GMS principal was under public attack on our lone pirate ship, struggling from a battle, looking to administration for support and a helping hand to get through a very rough time. In December, the battle at its worst for him, weary, barely hanging on, and finally the administration came. And they reached out their hand, and instead of pulling him up, they peeled his fingers back from the side of his ship and pushed him off, and told us that he all jumped. For those of you on the board that still think he jumped and haven't demanded the truth, you're responsible too, because you are holding the life jacket and didn't toss it to him, so it's on you too. This is devastating to our children and teachers to watch and go through our beloved leader treated this way. Claiming our principal resigned and leaving us on his own right is just not true. This has brought to light once again a common thread of false narratives, lies, poor judgment, lack of integrity with Bond jazz hands to distract from bigger issues at hand. Over the last few years, there have been a number of very public, very negative issues responsible only by those sitting at the front of this room. Any of our kids, or if any of the other faculty or staff had done even one of those things that this administration has done, they would be kicked out of school. Literally, go find a new school. So why haven't you? As parents, voters, taxpayers, we will no longer sit silent for bad judgment, foolish mistakes, and small-town good old boy politics. Good old moms are here, and we're watching and we're listening. Board, this is your problem to fix. All it takes is 4 of you to fix the problem. We're voters seeking a transparent, accountable administration as well as board members with integrity. If we don't get what we want, you won't either. We pay all the salaries in the front of this room. They work for us and our kids and haven't been doing their job in an ethical way that they should. 4 of you can fix this for the whole room. GMS was just awarded a Texas school to watch under our principal. This is huge, a very long, rigorous process with a lot of moving parts, interviews, visits to the schools, even to be considered for this award, much less actually be awarded this national honor. A Texas school to watch school has consistently moved to meet fully the national endorsed criteria for high-performing middle schools, one that has made marked progress meeting in all of the criteria, including measurable gains in the academic achievement of all the students over time, and is committed to continuous improvement. These schools will serve as models and mentors for other schools seeking to improve. Winning this is no easy feat that I imagine Mr. Dawson, which I don't see here tonight, he may be, can attest to, since the only other time GSD was recognized for this was under his watch years ago in Acton. Winning this state and national award in recognition for Dr. Smith's leadership is the biggest jewel in the GMS Pirate Treasure Chest this year. I bring this up to prove a point for anyone still in denial about our principal leaving on his own accord. Why would someone work so hard for his staff and students, creating a family culture, getting this prestigious national award to walk away? Right? He wouldn't. I am not one to grab a cause and to make a ruckus over things.
You did know you had 3 minutes beforehand.
I did.
Okay. And I see you have a lot more that you wanted to say. I understand your situation. I understand that it hurts to have change. This is a decision he made. I know that's hard to understand. Does anyone want to say anything else?
Well, we're not going to comment on a personnel matter, especially with that individual not in the room. But I would encourage you to sit down and have a conversation with Dr. Smith. And if I'm invited to that conversation, I'm happy to go and discuss it in front of him, but not without him in the room. And I think you can understand us not talking about a personnel issue in front of a greater audience.
I would ask you to reach out to Ms. Rollator, who's, am I pronouncing your name right, Julie? Okay. Who's going to be the new principal over there. Get to know her. She's actually here today, and I'm sure she'd love to speak with you and to give you a little more information on where she says she thinks that you're going. I think another thing that I would like to say is I have seen a difference in GMS because of the parents that are there. There have been parents that really, really wanted to go to AMS, and we just didn't have the room, so they stayed at GMS, and you have changed a lot of the culture there too. And I am impressed with the PTO that y'all have put together that really didn't exist, and the other work you've done. Please don't belittle the work that you and the other parents have done to GMS as well. And I give it back to you if you want something else to say.
Well, no, I mean, I know we've made a massive difference. There's no belittling that. And I do have, in my response to you, message is I've met our new incoming principal, and she knows I'm here tonight representing a large number of GMS parents, kids, and faculties. And I'm here for her now, as well as Dr. Smith, to show her, as well as other leaders in our campuses and parents that support them, that we don't want what happened to Dr. Smith to happen to them. This has caused a bigger movement of support in our beloved staff by taking care of and protected from selfish, baseless decisions made in this building. Our GMS principal did not cause the unfortunate actions by a few kids that occurred in our school last year, which must not be overlooked. Our GMS principal did not cause the bond to fail for a second time in November, yet December he clearly became the fall guy for one of the shortcomings of the administration. If the bond fails again, who's next? It only takes 4 of you to make a change. I stand here tonight to represent literally hundreds of parents and kids, upset citizens, to support every teacher and staff member that has been done wrong in the district, and every parent and small business owner that didn't feel comfortable to show up tonight for fear of retaliation of some sort by y'all, either their business boycotted, loss of a job, kids being mistreated or labeled. These are all fears literally voiced and concerns by those who did not show up. Why is that? We should all be able to speak our valid concerns and discuss our views without fear of being canceled or bullied. The very ones supposed to dissuade and protect our children from bullying are the ones who end up doing it themselves. And it's not news. Why do you think the room isn't packed with people waiting to speak on this issue when we have so many supporters? They all have plenty to say about this when they're not here in fear of speaking with their minds. When will you lead by the standards you measure our children with? It only takes 4 of you. We desperately need role models with leadership and integrity. We will support the bond when we trust those in charge with the money. It's not about the need or actual likability of the administration. I like y'all. It's about trust on the little things so you can trust with the massive things, aka millions of dollars. And it's just not there for so many of us. You're supposed to be leading us by example for an entire district of children and future leaders. And the way that y'all conduct yourselves now, you get a failing grade. And I'm not sure that tutoring can even help. The board, the ball is in your court. The vote is in ours. It only takes 4 of you. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What is it that you're wanting us to do when you say do the right thing? What do you mean by that?
When I say do the right thing, it means I know absolutely that Dr. Smith did not resign on his own accord. I'm certain of that. So if you aren't and the other board members are not, then you need to have a conversation with the person who told you that he did and get to the truth. That is what I'm asking y'all, to get to the truth. And when you see what the truth is, then give us a solution by someone who can give us an honest answer.
I don't think you have all the information, and and I would really like to sit down with you and Dr. Smith. And if you will arrange that meeting, and Dr. Smith is willing to have that meeting, maybe you can get all the information.
Yes. I will arrange that.
And I'll be
meeting.
available at your convenience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the next person up is Mr. Jim Brown.
Thank you, Board. Whoa. Check. Thank you, Board. Sorry, South Lake is a long ways away. Here we go. I am puzzled and somewhat dismayed at the proposed bond being pushed forward just a couple of months after the voters turned it down. I have some questions about the process and hope that somehow this board can shed light on some issues. Number one, how much of taxpayer money was used to promote the past bond, and how much has the GISD budgeted to promote this bond, and how much will the taxpayers pay for the special election? How do I do this? Do I let you respond?
You speak for 3 minutes and then we'll
Perfect.
clarify.
Number two, I've heard that the public was invited to a planning meeting last month, but only specific individuals were actually invited. Can you share how those individuals were selected? Is there a more accurate way to describe the meeting other than the public was invited, as this seems misleading? Number three, keeping taxpayers from Somerville and Parker and Johnson counties from convenient voting locations and election fatigue discussed when deciding to hold a special election this May. What were the contents of that discussion? Were there minutes or recording of this discussion? Number four, when will you provide to the public an itemized budget for this bond? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'll start with promoting the bond. School districts do not promote bonds. We do not advocate one way or another. We will provide factual information. As far as budgeting, factual information, you could do an open records request, and that information could be pulled from the ISD for you. As it relates to who was put on the long-range planning committee, we pulled those individuals, often people who participated in strategic planning. Last year we did a strategic planning process where we went through long-range planning, put together a 5-year plan for the district. Individuals that participated in that were asked to come back and be engaged in the long-range planning process. As it relates to Parker and Johnson County, those counties are not having elections in May, therefore they're defaulting to Hood County. So that was not our decision, that was the decision of Parker and Johnson County, and so Hood is holding their elections for them. Those voters will be notified, and I think those were, was there one more question?
Itemized budget.
Oh, itemized budget, and we have Mr. Posey here, so I'm going to ask him to speak on that.
Sure.
So if you refer to the bond budgets that were presented and discussed during the Long Range Facility Planning Committee, those are an itemized budget. Kind of similar to if you were to buy a home, you're not getting an itemized budget for doors, hardware, casework, the roof. It's part of a price that you agree to purchase, that scope of work for. So when we do these budgets, we use good historical cost analysis for the items that are considered part of the scope of work. So renovations, what kind of renovations? Are they light or are they heavy? Are we gutting and remodeling? Are we replacing rooftop units? How much is each rooftop unit worth? What's a good rule of thumb pricing for those things? Because I don't think that people realize that as a designer, I'm not getting paid to design anything right now. We're just trying to help get the idea for the scope of work out to the people so they can understand what's being proposed.
And I want to clarify, you said Parker and Johnson County. Parker is actually holding their elections. It's Somerville and Johnson County that are not holding elections in May.
Am I allowed to speak? In Parker County? Or
Yes,
they have to
correct.
travel to Hood?
No.
That was just the only concern.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
question. No, it's gonna, theirs will be in Parker. So those counties that are having elections will be able to vote in the GISD election. If they're,
In Parker County.
Parker County is, Johnson and Somerville are not.
right.
They're
Parker
coming to
County's
Hood.
having an election anyway for, they have quite a few ISDs who will be having their trustee elections. And there are some city elections in some of the cities in Parker County, so they are holding an election. Johnson County is not holding any election, and Somerville's not having any election. So we will allow those people to come and be able to vote here in Hood County. And as far as going back to the itemized list, there have been other school districts that have put together itemized lists, and they've had to pay out of their own pocket, sometimes up to $1 million, to come up with an itemized list. And then that's before the bond is called. So that's coming out of maintenance and operation, and we just don't have it. So we are not putting the architect to that and asking them to do that without knowing that our citizens are going to pass it. That's just good fiscal responsibility.
Very good.
Any other questions?
It's a very compressed time period. I feel that there's going to be it's a very compressed time period. My only statement would be, I feel in the rush of this, we have a huge election coming up in November. There would be far more voters that would attend, which would be a far better opportunity for the overall public or voting public to be part of yay or nay on the bond. I believe that by holding a special election in only 60 days from now, what's going to happen is you may only have 5,000 to 7,000 voters show up, is basically what happened in 2022, I believe, for the last big bond. And so I understand that, but it's just, there's 49,000 registered voters in Hood County. And if 7,000 show up, we don't even have I think it was a 14% representation. And it just, I understand that the bottom line is we just got to get the people here to vote. I got it. But man, they just got done voting in November. They're getting to vote in March. I mean, people are getting flyers at their doors because I've been seeing them. I'm putting them there. And so I'm just concerned that we're going to have a lot of apathy, and yet you will not have the overwhelming majority of Granbury citizens, concerned citizens, behind this bond. They just may not show up to vote, which is toward, I just wish we had a longer period. We're going to have a huge turnout in November. Why can't this wait till November? So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your information. I appreciate it.
Good. Thank you.
Next, we have Mrs. Monica Brown.
Okay, is it on? I don't know how to.
It should be.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for this format. What was put online looked like a regular special called meeting where the public can make comments. There was rumor that we could talk. There was rumor that we couldn't talk. There was rumor that you would video it. There was rumor that you wouldn't video it. And you probably could have dispelled all that. Maybe next time you can do that so the public knows what to expect. Because to get to talk to you is totally different than just standing there and speaking. Anyway, one comment I want to make about Karen Lowry is just that she had 12,000 votes from citizens here in Granbury, and I imagine if she goes again, she'll get that many or more. So I just want y'all to remember that when you shut her up and shut her out. Okay, so that was one thing. And then it isn't Republican, according to the planks, to run a special order bond like this, special call election, so that you already know you're not going to have the voter turnout. That is not Republican. And I know all of you claim to be Republicans, and I appreciate that. And I hope that's, I know that we're all on some kind of continuum on everything that we do on our level of loyalty to things. But Republican plank, I can't tell you which one it is. I can post it later for people to see. It is not Republican to pass a bond of $161.5 million with very little detail to the public about it. I understand we can't spend $1 million to get all the details, but that's not right. Dave Eagle mentioned something in Commissioner's Court. They have a little debt, they pay it off. They have a little debt, they pay it off. You guys aren't doing that. And some of us are sick of it. I'm personally not, I don't want to be taxed to death. And certainly for a system I'm not even using, right? If my children aren't going there, and I've been paying taxes for 29 years, well, actually a lot longer than that, but anyway, I've had school-age children for a long time. I've been paying taxes before that. But it's my right to use your system, so it's always got to be there, right? And I appreciate that. I don't think it has to be an us against you, but I do think you need to look at trends. Briscoe, they're under-enrolled. Fort Worth, under-enrolled in a big way. You can research this yourself. What was it, Richardson? Under-enrolled. The people that are moving in here, if you look at the houses and the new properties that are being built, much of that is for retirees. It is not designed for families. These aren't, you may have a grandparent with a little child that goes to school, but the majority of these people are retirees. This is a retiree town. So I think we should nip and tuck. That's what I say. Grandma said eat your vegetables. She also said don't go into debt. Now, of course, most of us have, right? But I hope that we don't keep doing this. I think it's crazy. And I think what will happen is you'll be just like Jerry Doherty said, trends are changing. That doesn't mean it's bad. And some of these kids flow in and out of the system, right? They come back and forth. We have kids where I'm working and located, where I donate my time. They come back and forth. It's okay. We welcome them. And some of them just get a year to reset, and they go right back into the public school because there's plenty of things you offer that others can't. I will say I don't think it's fair that the state takes my money, but you guys don't want to share any of that benefit to the rest of the community that's not in your full-time system. So I have 6 seconds left. I have a pile of papers here of concerned citizen comments. I'm probably going to email them to you. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I didn't really ask a question.
That's okay, but you made some good points. Let's see. As far as Frisco, Richardson, and Fort Worth, yes, I agree. They are finding out that there are going to be buildings that they're going to have to close. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing is where we're about to build, there are going to be 150 homes that are going to be built around it. And those homes are the size of homes that are going to be using that as a school neighborhood. And then you look at the homes that are being built up in Crescent. They are of the size and the price of people that are going to have homes. I think what we're seeing is we're expecting anywhere from 2 to 2.5 children per. So it really does make a difference. But I do understand what you're saying, and it is something that we will continue to look at, and we will try not to rebuild. Is there anything anyone else would like to say? I want to always give y'all your chance. You have a couple more minutes if you like.
Okay, and I won't go long or anything. I do want to say that if you were to publish that data so it's provable to us, because at the last board meeting, Dr. Glenn talked about plateau. Okay, I'm more concerned about reading and math scores. That's what I'm concerned about. I would love to see us use current and existing buildings. I'd love to see us pull together as a community. A barn raising something. Even the whole thing with the hospital district with the indigent people, let's work together. Let's raise $1 million and put it in an account somewhere. Let's don't tax the people. Let's do what Republicans do. Let's do what innovative Texans do. Let's don't go into debt anymore. Let's find ways to solve problems around here that don't mean a $161.5 million bond. So that's what I'd like to see. And I think what's happening collectively, the leaders in this town are crushing people. That's what I think. But if you can prove to me about your housing that you just said, that would help. And I mean me, the community. I don't mean just me. I get it. So I don't think I have anything else to say.
There was something you did say, and I'm sorry, I forgot to say it. As far as this meeting was concerned, in the last 3 meetings that we've had, regular board meetings we've had, when I talked about right before we would do the agenda comments, I read a statement very similar to the one I started off here, saying how this meeting would be run. It is something new. I don't know anyone else is trying it. I was trying to come up with something to allow us to have this kind of back and forth where we could actually talk. It's an experiment. So I'm sorry if you didn't get the information you needed to know what this meeting was going to be about. Hopefully it's now become clear and it's worthwhile.
Right. I think the term town hall, it perfectly answers it, because that is where the person gets a mic and can discuss, but the agenda itself. So I appreciate that. If on the agenda, it says public comments with feedback and going back and forth, if you just add that in, I think that will eliminate that. And if you're going to live stream it, or I guess in this case, show it later.
It's an audio.
Oh, it's an audio. Okay. Well, then that way the people will know. Because there were
Very good.
people upset. They called in to say, well, are you going to live stream it because I can't be there. I want to see it.
Right.
And they think you're hiding something.
Yeah.
But at least you're doing audio, and that's
Yes.
good, and I appreciate that very much.
We're doing audio, and the reason we're not doing video is this room is not set up for video, just so that people understand that. All right, thank you so much, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
And next we have Mr. Criswell. Okay, we will move on. Next we have Dr. McDonald, Paula McDonald.
All right, is this on? Thank you, guys. I would just want to have a comment and a conversation about this bond. In 1972, my family moved us to Granbury just after the lake was completed. And thankfully, we had a community and a school board that understood growth, that it was coming, and they completed a brand new high school. I attended that high school in the 70s, and now 50 years later, I'm getting old, that school is still serving this community. However, as we all know, our community is growing. We're going through lots more growth. As more families continue to move here, they want to be here. And despite the cry for no new taxes, we are in desperate need of updated school facilities, a new elementary campus to alleviate this growth, buses, repairs to schools, on and on. To the two board members, one's not here, who continue to say no to the bond, your fellow board members point blank ask you for your plan and your reason for the no vote. We as a community, we need to hear your responses. Good leaders offer solutions. We have yet to hear any of your solutions, and we have a problem. We absolutely have a problem. So what are the solutions to the following? Overcrowding and subsequent safety issues due to that. Facilities and equipment in desperate need of repairs. Transportation needs, continued community growth that's coming. Each of you as trustees serve the entire school district and the entire community. You don't just serve your constituents. We as a community have a responsibility to our kids. We owe it to them to be responsible for providing facilities that can accommodate for this growth. Our kids are worth it. There are over 8,000 students attending our schools whose parents are counting on this district to educate their children. I'm one of them. We also employ the largest number of people. The answer is to pass a bond that's going to address the above issues and provide for this much-needed continued education for our students. Community members, business owners, and property owners. Good schools equal excellent communities, strong businesses, and exceptional property values. If our schools fail, our businesses will feel the impact, and our home values will decline. With growth comes responsibility to provide the very best schools that we can. It is time for all of us to step up and to get this bond passed. Thank you. So my question, really, I guess, Ms. Lowry, you're the only one that's here of the two that voted no. And I know Ms. Gore asked you guys earnestly and honestly and transparently why you're a no.
Yeah, this will be my time. Absolutely.
You asked a question, and I have a question for you. How does a new building better educate a person, a student? How does that do that? And it requires a teacher. Many of the people have informed me they do not want to take on this level of debt with so much economic uncertainty looming in the nation. They've got inflation, groceries, fuel, the border crisis. Everything's increasing. The national election in November will signal to us the direction we are heading economically and in other areas. And since I have a little time to think about this, since Courtney asked me that question, now I'm going to tell you. Let's look at the numbers. The The bond is set at $161,500,000 with an estimated 5% rate of the combined principal and interest would come to $315,458,000. A lot of money. In our last board book under Exhibit C, the voter information document, the emphasis is made that the proposed bonds would be estimated at a 5% interest rate. This is dependent on the rates not being higher at the time the bonds are sold. Who can predict with any certainty with the present economic volatility what the interest rates will be? Additionally, this estimate, quote from the paper, assumes annual growth of the taxable assessed valuation and dollar amount for the next 5 years and remains constant thereafter, end quote. This again is dependent on a lot of uncertainty with the economic situation in which we presently find ourselves. If appraised values decline or growth rate declines, GISD will have no option but to increase the tax rate to meet the payments. We still owe $76 million on the outstanding debt, and with the interest added, it totals $104 million. If this bond passes, the total debt to Hood County citizens would now be $419 million. Secondly, what are we getting for the $161,500,000 that'll bring our debt level to $419 million? On the website, it says 1 elementary school, modernize aging campuses, renovations to 9 GISD campuses, enhanced transportation, new North Transportation Center with the purchase of 30 buses, implement additional instructional technology and more, safety and security measures and more. I think a lot of people would like to know what exactly does all of that mean. Maybe we can't itemize each particular thing, but I think we could give a little bit more to the community to tell them exactly what they're going to get for all this money. Basically, we've got an open check. Next, the demographic study GISD used for their projections is the same demographic study they used in the first proposed bond and subsequent second bond. They were defeated by the voters. I had asked if we conducted a new demographic study before this bond proposal was considered, and the superintendent said no, it's the same demographic study. I think that most of us recognize how our economic profile has changed in the last 2, 3, 4 years. I'm concerned with the use of an old demographic study for this bond. Are we being misled on our future growth? We have not met the projected growth for 2024. Are our projections of growth even accurate today? In the last board meeting, the superintendent stated our growth this year has plateaued. Can anyone predict the growth accurately with any confidence in the economic situation we find ourselves? Additionally, we are frequently told that our GISD student population is 56% economically disadvantaged, which indicates many of our families are struggling. Unlike many of us with frozen property taxes based on our age, these families are not in that situation. Therefore, these families will bear the burden of paying this debt off over the next 30 years. They face the escalation of taxes based on their appraised value of their property. As well, many of our young teachers will be bearing the burden of this bond for the next 30 years. For example, a father who's 30 years old with 2 children ages 8 and 10 will pay for this until he's 60 years old, and the children until they're 38 and 40. And that is if we don't request another bond. I believe we will burden our younger families with debt without having exhausted other ideas to fix the problem with resources that we have and not take on such a debt burden. I believe we need to find ways to manage the future of the resources that we presently have. I think that there are a lot of things that haven't been discussed, that this would be a good place for people to come and discuss different ideas. Realignment of schools, use this admin building as a school, and relocate the admin staff. This building was previously a school, and I believe the numbers indicate that there were 600 children that could be educated in this building. Possibly the addition of a wing to existing schools. I don't know if all these things are possible, but I am asking the questions. We own land. Can we leverage this land to help in the budget? Whatever happened to that $1 million from the HCAD? What was it used for? Use some of the fund balance to address the other critical issues. Finally, this $161 million has not been identified. Okay, like I said, I understand it maybe can't go line by line because it costs too much, but I think we could have a little bit more understanding of exactly what we're getting for this amount of money. I get ridiculed for asking questions at board meetings. Members of this board approved the purchase of an airplane, which we did not need. I am confident that if I were on the board then, I would have asked questions regarding the appropriateness of the purchase. Here are a couple other questions to think about. What exactly is the money going to be used for? What transparency will be given to the citizens as these funds are being spent? The previous board president told me that you could use the money for whatever you like as soon as you get it. It doesn't have to be used for what you are talking about now. Will this board commit to complete transparency on how these funds are being used? There's no way that $419 million of debt will not raise our taxes. I'm sure that there are things that the children need. I'm sure that there are rooms. And I have a question. Maybe there's a kindergarten teacher that could, when I toured school the other day, as I walked by the rooms, there's TVs bigger than the ones in the back of the room here. And they had what looked like what we used to use on a piece of paper on how they learned to write their letters. All the kids were sitting in front of this screen. I'd like somebody to explain, what was that all about? They're talking about portables, yet the portables are just used for certain classes. It's not like we have, at least at this school, classes that are out in these portables all day long. Let's try to look at things we have. There's people that are hurting. They don't have a whole lot of extra money to be able to just dump it. I don't think you're really mad at me. I think you're mad at all the voters that voted no. They're voting no because, one, they don't understand, and two, in economically times like this, they're hurting, and so they're going to vote no.
Can I get her to repeat the first question?
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. Here's a 13-page breakdown on the bond you've been given multiple times.
Yes, I've seen that several times, but there's a lot of people that haven't seen this, and so they
Sure,
would
it's-
like to know.
It was on.
It's online.
It was
But
online,
there's still a lot
and
of
it will be,
people that haven't
and it will be again. But you said you haven't.
No,
and
I've
that
seen
was-
this.
Okay.
I've seen that. I was at the strategic meeting when I saw it.
And I do think we have to do a better job of communicating, and we will. As far as the smart boards at the front of the classroom, I don't think they're televisions. I think the teachers use it as a teaching tool, and if you want a better explanation of the smart board that they use, I could have someone from the curriculum department describe it to you.
I'll go by and ask one of the elementary teachers.
Perfect.
Can you repeat that first question that you read? Just the first question.
Question?
Yes, you started out with a question.
First, many of my constituents have informed me they do not want to take on this level of debt in this economic uncertainty.
No, you asked about
No, I
what do
didn't. That was my
teachers
first
need?
question.
You said, what do teachers need? That was what you
No, I
asked.
didn't. No, I didn't.
You did. You asked what teachers need, and I'm
No, I
telling
said
you
I'm
as
sure
a
that there are
former,
things that
excuse me,
teachers
but
need. I didn't
I'm
ask what
speaking
they
now.
need.
As a former teacher, I can tell you that teachers need schools that have enough room for their kids. When I taught high school biology, if you have 25 or more kids in a classroom like that, it is difficult to be able to teach them biology, to teach them and have the equipment for that many kids, that many microscopes, that many test tubes, on and on and on. So when you ask that first question, which we did, we can go back and listen to it, you ask, what do teachers need? This is what teachers need. They need space, they need materials, and they need good, safe schools so they feel safe and our kids feel safe. That's what teachers
Our
need.
kids don't feel safe. They're being
So
bullied and
it
there's so much.
sounds like you have a lot of questions about the bond. My recommendation would be to set up a meeting with the board president and the superintendent so we could answer all those questions that you have.
They're not for me, guys. It's for the people that are voting.
Well, if people have questions about the bond up here, then we can answer those. But as far as like your questions that you have, that's what I would recommend doing.
And I think if you were to meet with Ms. Townsend, maybe you could help communicate some of that information to your constituents.
All right, so we will move on. Next up is Gladys O'Brien. I think I'm pronouncing your name properly.
Good evening, Board. And I came with this page full of stuff, and most of my questions have been answered. That's a good thing, I think. I do have, let me just
The
go.
audience can't hear. Sorry.
Just hold the mic a little closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shall I start over?
No, you're good.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions still, and that is, I have a hearing issue. It's not volume, it's a processing. The budget or the plan is not listed on the GISD website. Is that correct?
It was It was for the November bond and will be shortly for the
Okay,
May
because I
bond.
saw the August work, anyways, I saw that. But it will be up? Okay, because I was going on that. One of the things that was just mentioned was that, and I come from a business background, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but whenever we had a business that we were going to either build from the ground up or we acquired a existing building, we always had to go to the bank and provide how we were going to pay our debt. We had to show the expenses of that building, the construction. We had to, the cost of the land, the cost of the equipment, payroll projected, and the projected income. So that gives the bank some assurance that, yeah, we can pay our debt back. One of the questions I had was that having an itemized budget per location, which means per school, showing how that money is going to be spent, instead of just saying it's going to be 16 million at this school, it gives the voters more assurance of that accountability, that somebody is being held accountable for how those funds are being spent. If we just give the schools the money and say to whomever is spending it, just, knock your socks off, that's not a good plan. That's not a good plan at all. That's not even common sense. So I just wanted to put that in your ear. Also, is there a contingency plan for any cost overruns?
Okay.
Yeah, those are all very good questions. First, on the bond breakdown, we do have a 13-page document. We're trying to break it down even further.
Okay.
It will be released online. We did that for the last bond as well. We will do so again. I can give you the 13-page document, and you can take that. It'll be downloaded soon when our communications director launches the election website. And then from there, we're going to look to break it down even further. We're working with Stantec Architecture on that. So those are great questions. Give me your last question again. Oh, the contingency? Yes, we absolutely build contingencies in, and they may actually be listed. Contingencies will be on this 13-page budget. So you'll see the contingencies we allow. Because we're projecting 3 years out. So an elementary school built today, just for those in the audience, an elementary school that starts construction today, it's going to take about 2.5 to 3 years to build.
Okay.
So if we were to pass the bond in May, the school wouldn't open for 3 years. And so we talk a lot about growth. I know the question came up from Ms. Brown about growth in the district, and would we actually see the student enrollment? Truthfully, right now there's about 900 kids, over 900 kids in Bronner Elementary School, over 800 in Acton and Mambrino. So if we were to take 300 kids out of Bronner and 200 kids out of AES and Mambrino, get rid of the portable buildings we have at Bronner and Oakwoods and AES, then what we effectively have is about elementary schools with 600 to 700 kids, which is ideally where we want to be, because now we have a better student-teacher ratio. We're able to give more attention to parents, more attention to kids, and so that's essentially where we're going. So right now we know if we could build that school and snap our fingers and have it online today, then we could fill it with 600 kids and lower the student population on our other campuses, which is ideally what we want to do. But the short answer to your question is yes, contingencies are in the budget. I will give you a copy of this. It'll be up online for everybody soon.
Okay.
We're trying, because so many people ask for so much information, we try and watch everything at once. If we just put out one thing, we tend to get nitpicked, like, why don't you have this, why don't you have that? And so, but you have great questions, and hopefully if I leave you with a copy of this today, maybe.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
On it's 30 buses, if I'm correct, that are going to be replaced. What are you going to do with the existing 30 buses?
Yeah, and so I'm going to have Mr. Whitefield speak more in depth on the buses. Right now, we actually, it's cheaper for us to replace engines on the old buses, but a lot of them just extended their life.
Sure.
We bought a new bus in December. The Thomases came online, and I believe I was on that bus on Friday, and we'd already put 20,000 miles on it.
Sure.
Just in a few months. Our buses travel enough distance every day that it's like going from,
I see them all over.
Yeah, it's like going from the San Francisco all the way to North Carolina and back.
Well, you know,
maintenance.
it's really popular now for people to buy those buses and make like RVs out of them. So it's just something to put in.
We may have some to
That's right.
sell on our
Okay.
on our online
Thank
website.
you.
And then the last thing, you did mention this, and I thought it was a very good question too, about like how the backing the school districts get. So we are backed by the Texas Permanent School Fund, so they are the guarantor of all
Okay.
district debt. So,
Okay.
And that's for all districts in the state of
Great.
Texas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are great questions. I appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have Mr. David Rogers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for affording me the opportunity to speak before the board. Have questions about the bond election. Good evening. Thank you for affording me an opportunity to speak before the board. I have a couple of questions about the bond election in May. One of my questions is, in the previous bond election in November, we had over 100 people from Parker County alone that voted against the bond. And yet we have citizens, working parents in Johnson County and Somerville and Parker County. How are they going to be afforded an opportunity to a free and fair election when the only voting locations are scheduled to be in Hood County?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. As far as Parker County is concerned, we are going to, if you are in Parker County, you will vote in Parker County. We have set up for elections there. They are also having elections for other ISDs, and they're also having elections for city. So Parker County will be having elections. Johnson and Somerville are not having elections in May, so we cannot have any elections there. They will be coming to Fort Worth. They will be coming here to Granbury to be able to vote.
Okay. My next question is also about the bond itself. You know, the bond election in November, it was for $151.7 million. This time it's for $161.5. The difference in the amount, and after the interest, it's scheduled to be over $313 million. Why are not all the tools being used to possible? I mean, why do we have to rush the bond now? Why can't we take the time and get more information out, get the citizens informed, and then come back in November when there are several other ballot things being voted on the ballot, so that you're not just doing a special election, extra cost for the county to run an election for one day in May, as opposed to holding it off to November where everybody can be more informed when they go to vote?
We've already given quite a bit of information. We feel like a lot of what was the issue on the last election is that having the tray at the same time as the bond, there was a lot of confusion between which one was which. By having it in May, it's not that, okay, let's back up. The reason it's gone from 150 whatever to 161.5 is we've actually ended up having that much more bond capacity than we had back when we did the election before. So we could go to 161.5 and then also be able to take care of problems at the high school that we were not able to put in to the one that we did earlier. So we have that extra bond capacity, and that's what we're using. It will still be at the same tax rate, no tax rate difference. So that's where that comes from.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, Chairman Townsend, or Board President Townsend. Just one last question. I appreciate you explaining it to me. I just want to ask one last question. You know, Fort Worth and Frisco, there are several other ISDs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that built new facilities. They built new schools, and they've seen a massive decrease in enrollment. And with the potential possibility for school choice passing in the legislature, since Governor Abbott's made it his key priority, something's expected to pass. Doesn't all of that impact the amount of enrollment that's projected? And if you're building a new school when you already have other buildings that you could sell and then use that to build your new elementary school you need in the north side of town, why is none of that being studied and analyzed before pushing through this bond?
Well, we have looked at those things. We don't have any other buildings to sell. We have land, and it is up for sale, but we would like to use that to put back into our general fund. And the question of why not use some of our fund balance, we have to have a certain level of fund balance to be in line with what the state wants. We need to have 3 months worth, is that correct? 20%. 20% of what our normal budget is every year in fund balance. if we were to use some of our fund balance to do some of the things people are wanting us to do, then we would not be in line with what TEA wants us to have.
Okay, but like for example, I've heard numerous people on social media, teachers and other people say, hey, look, we can't have students and teachers in portable trailers. But my question is, what would be wrong with administrators operating out of trailers? Not students and teachers, I agree. Student and teachers should not be in trailers, but why can't the administrators operate out of trailers, take the administration building, and use that in some capacity towards the needed new facilities?
Okay, let's look at that logically. Number one, this building would only hold 400. Number two, it's not where the people are, so you're going to be busing them further than you could. Let me finish. Number three, it still doesn't take care of having a transportation hub on the other side. And also, as far as putting the administration into portables, you have a problem with the fact that we have a lot of private confidential information that would not be smart to put into a portable. Plus, we have all the computers in this building that handle the infrastructure, technological infrastructure for the entire ISD. That would not be smart to put into portable buildings. They need to be in a building with
hardened
a
facility.
safety.
But this is my last question. I'm just asking.
No worries, you're fine.
Why
You're
can't,
doing great.
But some people are saying, why can't, I understand this building only holds 400, but why can't this building be sold, take that money, build the new facility in the north side, Fort Worth side town?
Where are you putting that in?
Oh, well, okay. Thank you, Madam President. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your questions. Okay, next up we have Mr. Tim Bolton.
So some of this has already been asked and maybe even answered, and I don't know that they're really questions as much as concerns. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Now
Pretty
can you
much
hear
have
me?
to eat it.
Yeah, okay. Well, everybody else has been eating it. Oh, maybe I pushed the button. You started my clock already, but I don't know if this is on.
Yeah, there it is.
I don't think it's on.
You're on.
It's on?
Talk close to it.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm Tim Bolton. As you introduced me, thank you. I'm a father, and I have a son who graduated GHS 2 years ago and one who's going to graduate next year. So I have those concerns. I'm also a business owner and a resident, so I have those concerns. I'm concerned about the financial burden of all of it. Concerns about the increased tax burden on residents, and we can't really say it's not an increased tax burden because it's taxpayer money. It's getting paid back somehow, and that's a lot of money. This bond has already been rejected twice by the voters. I worry about transparency and accountability. That this community would like to see a detailed breakdown, so thanks for that 13-pager. I'll look forward to seeing that. But that's a lot of money that's planned to be spent. And this method of conducting special sessions, I'm concerned about with special rules of conduct of how to redress the school board and the effect I think that has of excluding the opinion of taxpayers and residents of Parker and Johnson and Somerville counties who can't make it to this. I barely made it to this. I mean, I was a half hour late after you guys had already started session because I work. So, and I was only right across the street. So it's an arduous process. You can't sign up to speak more than 5 hours before the session starts and not less than 72 hours before it starts. And anyway, so there's just a lot of burden on that. And then somebody mentioned a minute ago about alternative solutions and the effectiveness of spending. Some examples might include selling off assets that we already have in other properties, leasing an office space for the admin, and then repurposing this building back into classrooms. I heard the comment about, there's technology built into this building. That could be here along with the students. That doesn't have to move to temporary buildings or lease space. So I think that's a non-concern. But repurpose this building back into that. And then hiring more ASE certified mechanics to maintain the buses. So that's out there. I'm sorry, I'm fighting that clock. Low impact, or I think there's an impact to low income residents. that low-income residents are primarily tax beneficiaries, but the tax burden does impact them. I mean, and so it may displace those families elsewhere, so there's a concern there. I'm worried about the long-term financial consequences and the prioritization of these needs. I mean, this community has just awarded this school district the voucher and rejected again the second time this bond, and I don't know if this is just multiple attempts to try to make that continue to happen. I'm going to continue with this thought. I hear the bell going off. But you can only squeeze so much blood out of the taxpayer turnip. We may not be able to afford other improvements that are non-GISD improvements within Hood County. That's going to become something on the taxpayer. It's going to become a difficult situation because we also have roads, the thoroughfare projects that are ongoing or that are upcoming, the hospital district, the fire and EMS, the jail, all of those things are going to come onto the taxpayer. And so I know as a school board, you have a myopic view of what the school's needs are, but that doesn't account for what the taxpayer's burden is. And so I'll just one last thought that, where DFW area ISDs are downsizing and closing their schools, I don't know what makes us think that we need to build more. We should experience that same thing. And our population is growing older. We're not bringing in school-age kids. This is sort of, Granbury is the Florida of DFW area. So people come here to retire. They don't bring their school-age kids.
So actually, we're seeing the opposite of that. We are seeing about 23% increase in families that are under the age of 30, and I'll just take it one step further. You talk about the tax burden. We had a group of community members, of citizens come together, and that was at the top of the list. It's like, hey, it's a $161 million bond. That's a lot of money. And we don't want to continue to increase taxes. And that came up over and over, not just in strategic planning for the May election, but that came up in the November election as well. And so what I can tell you is that the tax rate of 93.42, 14.5 cents on the INS side, I will say exactly the same. So essentially we're able to use our bond capacity. So yes, we are extending debt, but we're not raising our tax rate. And also I would throw out there that if you're looking at Granbury ISD and you're considering our tax rate, I would challenge you to find another district that has more than 7,000 kids that has a lower tax rate than Granbury ISD.
Right.
And so if you could find that, come let me know, because I have yet to find those districts, and especially in our immediate area in the Fort Worth Metroplex. And so I'm not saying they're not out there. It's just I feel like our board's done a good job of trying to keep our school tax rate low.
I think that's
the
true.
lowest in Hood County, and we're going to be able to keep it at the same rate even with this bond. And so that's not just from me. I'm saying that was the desire of the Strategic Planning Committee, which are our parents and community members.
Yeah, and I give you guys praise for that. I mean, that the tax rate is low, especially compared to other districts, and I understand all of that. And this wouldn't necessarily raise the rate. It's still taxpayer money. I mean, we're gonna spend $161 million, but we have to pay back $360 million, and that's still burden on the taxpayer. It doesn't matter if it doesn't raise the rate. It's burden on the taxpayer. That's me and my kids and their kids. So,
sure.
All right.
Another thing that I would like to mention, and this isn't just for yours, but some of the other things that have been mentioned. If we were to redo this building without a bond, that means it's coming out of our maintenance and operation. That's what we don't have the money in maintenance and operation to do that. So the question would be, so would you rather that we did a bond that did that, or would you rather we do a bond that actually built a new school? And so, I mean, and when people
Can I answer
say,
that? Can I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, so that was my point, that I think that I would rather spend some money to change this school, to change this building into another school than I would to go
as opposed to
build
building a brand new school where it needs to be for the people.
Yes, you know that a private school could move into this building as is and not need to make changes to make it work as a school.
Okay, thank you. We still don't have money. Okay, the next person up is Mrs. Eva Royer. Is it Eva or Ava? Eva. Eva?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay, I'm trying to eat it like she said. This is the first time I've actually been here, and I just wanted to say, if you guys could, I heard you say earlier we probably need to communicate a little better. You guys are a little ugly with each other, and it kind of looks messy to the rest of us, and so that's a really bad look. And when Karen, she stated all of the things, you guys kind of discounted what she had to say. She's speaking for some of us, and so that's the only thing that I would say is if you guys could try to figure out how to get along, that's a lot of money. Your taxpayers have said to you guys, hey, we don't want this, so maybe there are alternatives, and can we look at that? And so are there other ways of repurposing? I'm a real estate broker. I do own houses here in Granbury. I think that there may be other opportunities, whether it be a sale of a property or a retrofit or something else that actually could work for this community. If they said no twice, let's look for another way for everybody to kind of say, hey, maybe this would work, and find an alternative like Ms. Lowry had said. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Ms. Lisa McDermott. You're not Lisa.
No, I'm not, and you may want me to go, but Lisa asked me if I would read her notes. Her husband and son came down sick. She's spoken here before. We've done this many times at board meetings where someone reads somebody else's notes, and I would like to read her notes if you're willing.
Okay, but we will do a back and forth.
That's fine.
Since she's not here.
That's great, and I appreciate that. But we have done it in many meetings where people have read for people, so, okay, they started my timer. Okay, she says position. This is for Lisa McDermott. She's a nutritionist, dietitian here in town. I am opposed to the proposed bond in the amount of $161.5 million. It is not a financially responsible idea for the school district nor the taxpayers of Granbury. Not much has been detailed in the way of this proposed bond other than the voters just approved Proposition A, voter approval tax rate election, the VATRE, in 2023, which was positioned to enable Granbury ISD to secure an estimated $8.2 million in additional annual funding. This results in more local and state funding for Granbury ISD, according to the GISD website. What are they going to do with the $8.2 million? We need to see their financial responsibility with that money before we pass another bond. Below is my entire comment. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to read it. I am opposed to the proposed bond in the amount of $161.5 million. It is not financially responsible. Not much has been detailed. Bond will include a new elementary school, modernize aging campuses, enhance transportation, safety and security measures, and more from the GISD website. She mentions the VATRE again. The crucial point is that some of this new revenue will not be subject to the school financial recapture system. Again, y'all can speak to this. The additional funds would allow Granbury ISD to give pay raises to teachers and staff, add personnel to reduce student-teacher ratios in classrooms, and pay for security improvements on all campuses from GISD website. The district already has successfully acquired money from taxpayers. Why is the district trying to tax the citizens, especially in such an unstable economy? What are they going to do with the $8.2 million? We need to see, and then she says again, I'm sorry I'm repeating, but according to the GISD Fall 2022 demographic report, unemployment was higher than the previous year. In addition, the report says a 5-year enrollment could increase by over 1,100 students and a projected increase of 2,870 students over the next 10 years. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the population estimates of Granbury include 15.2% of people who are under age 18 and only 6.5% under 5 years, whereas people 65 and over is at 32.9%. Given that mortgage rates are at an all-time high, the housing market is less than stellar, and that taxpayers have already been hit by the VATRE, it is not wise to be spending money on a bond that will cost millions and the taxpayers not see the benefit to it. I do not support the bond because it is not a fiscally responsible use of taxpayer money. Furthermore, the district and this board have already proved to be untrustworthy. I had a grievance hearing and was assured I would get a copy of the hearing audio by then President Harrington. When I requested it, as instructed, my request was denied. If I cannot trust the board to obtain a copy of a record I was assured, how can I trust them with $161.5 million? The answer is I cannot.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to be speaking for Mark as well?
You know what? I think it sums it up. I probably did both.
Okay,
So-
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Cherie Westland.
Separate from the other one? Is that separate from the other one?
You mean your daughter?
Yeah. One of my favorite professors while I was getting my bachelor's said $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. Interest rates and what you get for $1. The sewer plant is a great indication of what can happen if you delay things. I believe the projection is upwards of $20 million. Kicking the can down the road does not resolve the problem. Low-income families who are potentially the least affected due to the new $100,000 income will also be the most to gain. Statistically, these students are typically the ones at higher risk, whereas reducing class size and student ratio for a better one-on-one attention. So to answer Ms. Lowry's question before, what will a new class do? It will reduce your ratio and help those students who are at risk. Traffic issues such as traffic on 377 in Davis in the mornings going to Oakwoods is very dangerous. And just the other day, I was facing a car head-on who was trying to avoid traffic on James Road. And the high school had a student who was recently hit. The growth is on the new side of town, therefore this building would be first costly to remodel and two, doesn't solve the problem. The Crescent Pods, for example, statistics show are lower income and thereby potentially higher risk. I understand that the state law is you can't just form a new ISD. For those who are opposed to the bond, which is only one today, what do you say to the kids who are at higher risk who need that higher student-teacher ratio? What do you say to the student who has a long trek on a hot bus? What do you say to the student who has a longer trek because they have to come to this building, or the cost to remodel this building as well? What do you say to the parent whose student got hit? What do you tell the child who was in a building that could have been in a building where the roof was ripped off of a portable and potentially their child was hurt? What do you say to those parents? Your constituents are your taxpayers as well as your parents. And those who are sitting up here, I would hope, got elected because they want to have a better education for our students. So what do you say to those parents?
I have no comment.
I'll just say that again, to the people in this room, and we have been through this a lot in the last 3 years, where a big group will show up and they'll sign up for strong comments one way or another. We've seen it on both sides. I can tell you that we as a board, as a school district, we do listen. In the 3 bonds, something has changed every single time. And we feel like we've made headway every single time and we've gotten closer. I think I can speak for all of the trustees up here, and even Ms. Graft, who's not here. I think our trustees care about kids. We do not always agree in a climate that has been heated politically for a long time. At the end of the day, we all try and do our best to fight for our community and for our kids. And this next bond will be about the same thing. Individuals who believe that a new school on the east side is needed, and so they asked the board to call the election. The board did, and so our community will go to the polls once again in May, and they'll vote, and we'll see how it turns out. And if it's to the affirmative, then we move forward with the project. If it's not, then we regroup and we come back again, and we keep doing that because we're here to serve kids. And at the end of the day, it's not even about that teacher in the classroom, which we love and support, and we have great teachers here. But that teacher will tell you that it's about the kids. And so we continue to fight, we continue to press on, because we want great things for the kids in Granbury.
Do you have a closing statement?
I do.
Just to answer back as to what you said, I think it's healthy for y'all all not to agree, actually, because that's where you come up with the best solutions. Each one of you have a different history and background and experience and expertise, and with that, you come up with the greatest solution for everyone. So I think it's very healthy to not always agree, but to potentially bring different perspectives to the table. So I commend and thank you guys all for putting yourselves up there to be essentially ridiculed constantly.
Thank you, Ms. Westland. Next, we have Danica and Clacy Lowe, 2 current students.
Sorry, baby.
Mom.
Now she's gonna be too embarrassed to talk. Here you go, baby.
Mom fail. Go ahead, baby. Will you just sit next to your sister? Okay. She was nervous without you.
Just whatever you want us to talk about, sweetheart.
You wrote down that you want to talk about lunch.
The lunches for me are really, really short, and with the lines,
Really close to you.
the lines are really long, so you go in the line for the whole lunch, and you have like a few minutes to eat.
Okay, right.
And it's not enough time, and and specifically 5th grade lunch is really, really late, and we're hungry because we don't have a lot of time to eat, and then we go outside. We're just always, me and my sister specifically, always go and get food. And it's not just snacks, it's a real meal because we're still hungry from short lunches and especially the long lines.
You don't want it.
I understand your frustration. My son is in 5th grade and he has the same problem. By the time he gets through that line and he's able to sit down and eat, there's not much time left, and he's trying to scarf it down as fast as he can. He's lucky if he gets to finish half of it. I shared a personal story at the last board meeting where he actually saved his lunch and put it in his backpack so that after recess he could ask to go use the restroom so he could grab his lunchbox and finish eating in the bathroom, because that's how hungry he was. Because there's just that little bit of time left for those kids to eat. So I understand how hard it is.
Explain why.
Why? Because there's, why? Okay, I went to Acton Middle School. I went to Acton Middle School for 2nd and 3rd grade. It has never been designed to hold that many children. Those toilets, the plumbing in that building was never designed to have almost 900 kids flushing the toilets 5 days a week from 7 until 3. Those lunchrooms were not designed to try and feed almost 900 kids. And so to the point that everyone is making with our low economically disadvantaged families, that is one of my biggest concerns, is because we're trying to feed those babies when they're at school, and if they're not getting enough time to eat because we can't get them in and out of that lunchroom because there's just so many kids to try and feed, we don't know if they're going to get to eat when they go home. And so it's a huge concern of mine. So yes, building a new school is an absolute necessity, and helping to make sure that those kids are fed is a part of that reason. And so I understand, and I sympathize with you. My son is one of them. When he comes home, I have to feed him a whole meal when he gets home because he's that hungry. And it's no fault of any of the teachers or the people in the cafeteria. It's because the school was never designed to hold that many kids. When we talk about capacity and functional capacity, this is a prime example of functional capacity. That building was never designed to have that many children in there.
Do you have anything else you would like to say? No. Thank you very much. Our last speaker for this evening is Joe Palmer. All right, well then I would say that we are finished. I thank you all so much for coming out. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you have appreciated the fact that we could talk back and forth. And at this time, it is 6:30, and the board it will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Several copies. Listen, I don't need an attitude. I gave it to a young lady back